Welcome to Sex and Breakfast, the sexy way to start your day. Dishing out sexpert advice and spicy insights about sex, love, and everything in between. Hosted by sex coaches and therapists from around the globe.
Does anyone have any experience working with a client who there was a real distance between a real bad pun, a major difference between what one wanted to do versus the other in their comfort level?
Yeah.
Dominique.
Yeah. So my best friend is dating a merchant marine, and she has been for a couple of years. And one of her first challenges with her LDR, because he's on for 3 months and then off for 3 months, is that in the beginning he refused to talk on the phone, and all they had was the Facebook Messenger for communication, which was also not something that was reliable, because sometimes he'd go through phases and places when he was traveling around the world where sometimes he'd have service and sometimes he wouldn't. And then she made it a very hardcore stop for her. Like, she needs to talk to him, and so now they're talking probably like once a month at least, if service is available for him, or at least once a week while he's on the sea. So but he doesn't like doing FaceTime or any kind of other thing except like a phone conversation. That's it. So that's where their challenges have happened. So yeah.
I could see that being a deal breaker for
Yeah,
someone.
I know.
To say,
She's got it rough right now. She's trying to figure out what she wants to do next, because for her, she doesn't want a traditional relationship, but she wants a monogamous partner. So that's why she enjoys being with him. But the lack of connection when they're not together is challenging for her. Yeah.
Definitely. Wow, that's a good example. And I know just in my own friend groups, there's people have varying levels of a lot of people don't talk on the phone anymore. I've literally heard friends say, like, I feel uncomfortable. I feel so awkward. I've tried to FaceTime my partner, and he just can't do it. He just makes goofy faces. He's so uncomfortable. He feels like he's being recorded or something, and it's like, okay, but would it be a necessity for me? Would we, if we entered a long distance situation? 100%. So I can imagine that being a topic. Okay, so that covers the communication side, but physical intimacy. Oh, Nicole.
Yeah, just to go along with Dominique was saying about communication, I think when you're talking about being away from someone that you love for so long, talking on the phone, that type of communication can get pretty dull pretty quickly. I mean, um, there needs to be a broad range of ways that you can connect with your partner. And sometimes it can be really mundane things. Like, for example, I know with me and my partner, sometimes we just don't really want to like sit and chat over the phone, but we want to feel like we're in each other's lives. So sometimes we'll just like both listen or watch the same show at the exact same time, and we'll both hit play, and I'm sitting in like, somewhere across the world, and he's sitting at home, and we're not really talking to each other. We just put the phone on speakerphone and we'll just watch a show together. Or, we're like, hey, like, I'm going to go order takeout. Why don't you order takeout too? And we'll just sit and eat together. And maybe we're not even talking that much, but it feels like we're integrating each other's lives in a way that's not like the standard communication that can kind of get dull and just a little boring if you're doing that every single day. Like, okay, it's our standard time to talk. So like trying to incorporate ways that feel a little bit more like a normal, quote unquote, like things you do on a daily basis. Sharing pictures, not necessarily of each other, but just like, oh, like this is what I ate today, or like, look, like there's the dog or whatever it is. So you're like, oh, you're just part of the more mundane parts of each other's life, if that makes sense.
That's such a good point because not only can boredom set in, and you said you need that variety. The variety is important for anything in a relationship. So when you're limited due to it being an LDR, the tools you have need to be used sparingly, and you need to cycle through so that you can have that this sense of variety as best as possible. And otherwise, you may find yourself in pressure to perform, pressure to offer content to talk about. There's boredom, and then there's also just pressure to have something to say, which I think I can make a loose connection perhaps towards attachment styles. I'm definitely not going to get into attachment styles, but for any listeners out there who have read attachment styles, knowing what yours is, I think is a very, very important key to keeping up smooth communication, because attachment styles may be under the radar in your day-to-day at home, but once that relationship becomes long distance, they can often get, like an anxious attachment and an avoidant attachment can get exacerbated because it's limited to the spaces in our phone, and you really feel when someone's being avoided, XYZ. So that's my PSA on attachment styles. Read the book.
Another really great book I love is The Five Love Languages. I think it's five. And that's really can be helpful because, at least for me, before I knew my partner's love language, I would go and pick up a six pack of beer wherever I was in the world. Like, I'd try to find something local and I'd bring it back and be like, oh, I got you this like really cool beer you can only get in this country and you're not there. And I thought it was the greatest gift ever, but my love language is gifts. And so I was giving him all this stuff that I found, and it didn't translate into him feeling loved. And so knowing someone's love language, especially when you're away from each other, you can find ways to um, love each other better when you're apart, especially if someone's love language is words. That's something really great that you can offer when you're away from each other. um, Gifts is one as well, and serving people, that's something definitely can be a little challenging when you're away from each other, but there's ways to do that that are fun and spontaneous. So being aware of those can help people feel more loved and attached to each other when they're apart.
I love that. And I'm going to piggy off of that and like drop the erotic blueprints, like the fact that there's basically initiation styles, right? Just as there's different love languages, there's initiation styles. And how that comes into play here is, um, for example, if I'm trying to communicate eroticism and sexiness and that energy virtually, um, and I receive a dick pic when I don't want one, even from my partner, which I've previously approved the receipt of them. So that's all in the clear. But what if that's not my default erotic language? What if my default erotic language is him sending me an erotic poem by my favorite erotic poet, and the fact that he knows and remembers the poet's names and then sends me a screenshot of that poem? Ooh, that might get me off way more. And then we can exchange dick pics. Well, other pics from me. um, so that's really great, having those two, having the love languages in your toolbox and having knowing what your erotic language, so to speak, is very important.
I love that, Norlin, because I'm gonna thank you for the reminder. I can't believe I haven't suggested that to my girlfriend sooner. Like, hey, you should figure this out with your partner because I think it'll be helpful for you and him. Yeah. So good reminder. The erotic blueprint. How could I not have thought of that?
And a new love language, pebbling. Have you heard about the new trend?
What is that, Dion? Pebbling?
Yeah, pebbling.
Oh,
Yes.
I think
So
I have. I think I have actually. Sorry, I'm remembering. I'm remembering.
it's
Yeah, go for
it's
it. You tell what it
inspired by
is.
penguins because penguins. It's for some people, including penguins, love is all about the little things, and apparently penguins show act of love by sending their partner or giving their partner little pebbles. And so translated to human nowadays, so we drop in things like memes or trinkets or videos
Oh,
as a way to connect. I think it's just the latest trends, but it's kind of true though. It's like you see something on the internet, you send it as a way to connect with your friends or even connect with a loved one.
okay. Well, we've got a lot of tips and things to prepare for the positives to keep the communication that we hopefully had before entering the LDR and just like maintaining it through rituals that Nicole said, daily rituals to just feel like you're spending and sharing the same space with each other, all the way up to being very intentional with how we're exchanging erotic energy and our boundaries around that. This includes porn usage, no porn usage, creating content, all of those juicy things. But we can plan and plan and plan and plan. We also may end up in conflict anyways. So when that happens, and I like to talk to my clients about not if, just when, and the conflict might be small, and we hope it's small, but just be prepared for it when it comes. And this conflicts can come in many different forms. I'm just going to list a couple like jealousy, insecurities, FOMO, just missing out on what your partner's doing. Um, so, regardless of the conflict, I'd love to hear from you all the strategies once you're in it and you're still long distance to de escalate and potentially, if the conflict can't be solved now, how do we get to the other side? So, what are kind of the practical tips that come to mind when that conflict shows up, regardless of the topic?
I always pull pull it back and ground ourselves to what is the shared value.
Mm,
And quite often we don't talk about our shared value explicitly, and it is quite often is assumed. So for example, maybe one of us feel that flirting with colleague is fine, but the other one think no, flirting with colleagues is a red zone. But we never really have that shared value, and shared value could be a really core shared value, like oh, can we be transparent, and what kind of level of transparency we both agree upon or not agreeing upon. I think sometimes taking a pause and remind ourselves what is our shared value and goals for relationship and the long term view of the relationship. Remind ourselves on that can be helpful. So yeah, sorry, not exactly how to work on the conflict right away, but knowing what's the end game can be helpful.
yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I do see it as a technique to use in the middle of it, actually, because I'm imagining a situation where the tensions have rose, you're losing each other in the anxiety and anger and resentment. How do we ground back down? We ask each other what are the values or remind each other, especially if we've had this conversation early on, we can go, hey, time out. We're both pissed off, but what is the value of XYZ, and how can we both get there? And normally, I mean, everybody in conflict, it's a little hard to let go of the anger, because your anger now is the thing you're holding, and it gives you strength in the situation. But when that values question comes up, it feels less finger pointy, and more about the structure that you had agreed upon beforehand. And you'll end up on the other side stronger for it if you go the values route. So I do see it, Dion, as a technique to use in the moment.
You just mentioned about timeout. So timeout, it's a technique, so you don't get over flooded.
I think also putting structure around how we're going to deal with conflict. So in my personal life, when I am physically in a different location, um, I do my best to have conflict on FaceTime. So there is verbal and visual of each other's expressions and emotions. Secondary would be via phone. Absolute last resort is via text. If like not like, hey, we're not even going to have conflict over text messaging. I think it's so important that you get as close to being able to feel each other, see each other when you're having an argument. If not saying, hey, I'm going to see you in like a couple days, let's do it in person. I personally actually find, in my personal experience, that the conflict arises more when we're in person than away, because it's like, oh, like we're so happy, like, oh, we miss each other, we miss each other. And then there's like so much buildup of like, when we see each other, I have an idea about how it's going to go. He has an idea about how it's going to go. And then like that first day, there's like so much buildup that it's like, it's impossible to meet those expectations. And then there's a conflict. So for me personally, we have learned how to like set the expectations up ahead of time. Like, hey, I'm excited to see you. Like, this is what I think is, this is what I'm thinking in my head, how it's going to go today, or when I see you next week. And then he can be like, well, this is what I'm thinking, and we can kind of talk about it ahead of time. So then when we actually see each other, our first day back together is not like just an entire blow up of fighting, because I'm like, I had this expectation of how you were going to act or what we were going to do, and you had a totally different one, and now I feel unloved and like upset.
Oh, wow. Good point. Good point. And I love going back to the conflicts when you're currently away, for a tick. Like, absolutely. Like, FaceTime is first level. Voice messages, second. Last resort is texting only, and just the bare minimum. And it's definitely going to be a pause and return. And I would also like to add into that to disclose if one of you has been drinking. And I actually made this new boundary for myself, with my friendships as well. I've had some friends call me after a couple of drinks, and I didn't know they were drinking because I'm not in the room with them. And we're not in relationships, so it didn't at first feel like it was my place. But I did find in myself, no, I'd actually like to know if they're 4 drinks in, even if they're a good friend, or 2 drinks in, or they're just starting and maybe the duration of the call, So I now politely ask if I get a call where I'm sensing or hearing a clink of a glass. So I pull that definitely into the space of romantic relationships, especially considering time difference. Somebody is at the end of their day. I'm sure you know this strongly, Nicole. One of you may be in the morning, early hours. The other person may be at the end of a hard day. And one of you may be relaxing with a drink or not. But like, just to get the idea of, disclose what mood you're in, and even remove the alcohol for a second. Disclose where you're at the top of a call or top of a text, just to let you know, I only have 10 minutes in me, because I am falling asleep and I might drop my phone on my face. Or, hey, I'm full of energy because XYZ. And your partner can be like, well, I'm not. So maybe we talk later, right? Honor that space. But you need that level of communication for that.
It's trauma informed as well, isn't it, Dr. Norlin? I mean, if you are out of your window of tolerance and your
Mm.
frontal cortex, it's been impaired due to drinking or really, really high in emotion and stuff, you can't think. And then you'll end up saying things that you regret later. And the repair will be a bit tricky, especially if you are in a different time zone. So it requires a higher degree of mindfulness as well, actually, this relationship, and intentional, um, versus a user relationship where you can just roll your eyes and just, and but knowing that later in the evening you can make up. A long distance relationship does not have that opportunity to quick repair after rupture, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think in some more extreme cases too, if you're in a LDR and you've made it through an argument, um, and normally if that was at home, you would have made it through the discussion and stayed at home together. Um, Maybe not in the same room, you have space, but you would have landed in the same space. Now, imagine a scenario where you made it through a sober argument or discussion in long distance, and one person after is going to stay home and the other person's going to go out. I think that also needs to be communicated too, because even though you've had your conclusion, your conclusion or closure, your closure, um, agreeing upon what feels good to you without also feeling like you're telling your partner what they can and can't do, but just letting them know how it would make you feel and then having them make a decision based off of that, I think is really important. So, what have we not covered when it comes to LDRs? We've talked about some of the most common pain
Integration.
points. Integration. Awesome. Okay. So, how did you bring it up earlier? It's a part of your practice, right?
Part of my practice is usually how do couple integrate back together after they
Mm-hmm.
have been in long-term relationship, and then they finally arrive at the end point where, hey, okay, we're now going to be living together after living apart for such a long time. So how do we navigate this new dynamic in relationship?
How do we? Well, I think jumping back to Nicole's note, like the high expectation, that's day one, right? There's more days after that. So that could be just a hot spot of making sure we don't overschedule, making sure there's lots of space for um, for the big emotions to happen. And also, your partner is going to arrive into potentially the home you've built together or your home, and it's not a joint home yet. So be prepared for all of a sudden craving your partner's presence and then all of a sudden them being there for every single day and night and throwing all of their stuff all over your apartment or house if it's not a shared space yet. That could send one half of the partnership into a loop for sure and spike anxiety that may be super unexpected because it's in dissonance with the joy you have for your partner being home. So pre-plan where your partner that's visiting, where their junk is going to go. No, just kidding, stuff. Uh, where their beloved items are going to go. Make sure you carve out their space so that they can feel like they have a home within your home until you are in a living space that you've built together is my big takeaway. Does it feel like I have personal experience with this? Did I have a spiral? No.
Or even allowing the change, role change, if you've been the one who spearhead the home. For example, you do all the scheduling for the kids, you do
Mm.
all the groceries, you're the manager of the current living, including social manager. And then suddenly you have your partner back, And how do you let the other party into your life? That is hard.
I think integration for me also requires that when you're away and like before you're coming together, a solid communication about what are the expectations when we are together. What are you thinking is going to happen or not happen? This is what I think is going to happen and not happen. And making sure that we're on the same page so that we, the time together can be well spent and there aren't any letdowns. Obviously, it doesn't mean that things can't be spontaneous and happen, but if one person thinks, oh, I haven't seen you in forever, I just want to stay home and like lay around the house with you. And the other person's like, oh my gosh, they haven't been here in forever. I want to take them here and there and there. Like, then, it's good. Oh, you can never over communicate. So I've learned the hard way to just be very wise about like, hey, I'm coming home. I haven't been home in forever. This is what I'm thinking it's going to look like.
I love that, Nicole, because I think that's so important. I love that saying, you can never over communicate. Because as a fire wife whose husband is gone a lot, I think for me, the biggest piece is it's kind of like when he's gone, I do everything that I want to do when he's not around, and that I know that I can have the time and space to do. And then when I know he's coming home, I prepare myself mentally and make sure that I have the house ready, and like things that he kind of has little nitpicky things about are clean, and that I do my part, to make sure that I'm in that right headspace for him. Because I think that is important to just mentally prepare and like talk to him about like, hey, what are we going to be doing the first day when you're home? Because I think that's important. Yeah.
Thinking to ask itself is a gift in itself. Yeah. That's really powerful, that even if you don't know the answers, like, it's showing that you're ready to provide as much as you can that's in support of their desires. And that's beautiful. That's how reintegration can go as smooth as possible with all of the big emotions present. All right. I think this does it. I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about the long distance relationship, the different challenges, the different aspects that you can prepare for, and the ways to keep it spicy when you're long distance. So check out our show notes. We may have some goodies there about our favorite long distance products, and we'll see you next time.
Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, send us some love by sharing, hitting subscribe, and leave a review. It really helps us connect to more incredible people like you. If you want to learn more about sex coaching or therapy, you can find us at sexandbreakfastpodcast.com. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at sexandbreakfastpodcast. The people helping us cook this all up are Michael Merle, creating our tasty tunes, dishing out our audio and video is Max Rainier, and our delectable visual designs by Brie Vilaubi.